Welcome, everyone. Excited to share our Prepare for VC chat on the whole human and unlocking your potential here today. So just gonna, looks like a couple people are joining in now. And yeah, really excited for Mark and Karthy to share their presentations. Just gonna give a quick introduction. So Prepare for VC, we have a startup community, an accelerator program that we're actually in the middle of applications now for our third cohort. Definitely check it out. It's in our community page, one of the top posts up there. And yeah, and we also offer a variety of resources and partners and really like to bring in experts in different fields. Some are entrepreneurs starting companies that can help all of you, and others are coaches and experts on particular topics that can share their perspectives and help all the companies we work with. So yeah, really excited to kick off this event. Basically, we want to keep it pretty open as well, and feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And yeah, share any LinkedIn or some info on the startups you guys are working on. And yeah, it's going to be a presentation, a chat, and then some time for Q&A and introductions at the end. So yeah, again, thanks for joining us. And yeah, I'll be here in the background. I'm going to make Mark and Karthy up here in the spotlight to kick things off. And yeah, we'll be in the chat. Excited for tonight's event.
Okay. Sounds good. Are we set up? Thanks, Jason.
Yeah,
I think we're ready.
Good to go.
Karthy? Good. Karthy, it's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
I guess we should introduce ourselves then a little bit more. So my name is Mark Hutchins. I'm Boston bound. I've been a technical founder, and now I coach entrepreneurs, helping them to innovate faster and think better. And for me, meeting you, Karthy, this past week or two, it's been really nice because it's an area of motivation and how do you do planning and how do you do personal growth that has both caused me to think deeper about how I approach it. And there was a real kinship I feel with the product that you've created, Goalden Hour. So I would love to hear, a little bit more about yourself. Please introduce yourself to the room here, and then we'll kind of get started with a chat.
Sure, sounds great. And yeah, fantastic to meet you too. I'm glad that this event has brought us together. I'm Karthy. I founded a tech company called Goalden Hour. We are building a productivity tool to help people make more time for their goals and good habits. So kind of combining the realms of calendar, task management, and self-improvement to help people manage their whole lives in one place, and then empower them to prioritize and plan for the things that truly matter.
Nice. So if I was checking out your webpage again this morning, I love this tagline, manage and master your life. So what was kind of the inspiration behind creating the product, right? Like what brought you to the point of this is a problem I see and I'm the one to solve it?
Yeah. So Goalden Hour was born out of a capstone project when I was in college. And it really came from my personal frustration with way too many tools to manage my life. Events in a calendar and tasks were strewn across multiple to-do lists and sticky notes. I'd always been kind of a self-improvement junkie, so I was really into habit tracking. And I had one app to track my daily habits. I had another journal to track my weekly habits and reflections, and just found myself really disoriented and annoyed that I was app hopping all the time and I couldn't see all of these things that were vying for my time at the same time in one place. So that was one aspect of the problem that really stood out to me, just this piecemeal productivity experience that I think is largely universal. And then the other thing that I really struggled with, and I know many others do as well, is just follow through on their goals. Because in the midst of all of these events and errands and everything else, it's unfortunately the goals and good habits that enrich and enhance our lives that fall by the wayside because we're just too busy or distracted or unmotivated. So all of that became the groundswell that led to Goalden Hour. We want to streamline all these different moving parts of your life in one place with a tool that brings together calendar and tasks and self-improvement, and ultimately is empowering people to plan consciously and live deliberately. The other thing that I really realized that, we are just inundated with all of this information about how to be better and feel better and do better. But the hardest part is making the jump from paper to practice and actually implementing what we learn and sticking with it. And that can be really hard to do, especially in this world where we're just constantly bombarded with meetings and appointments and, just different things that we have to do. And there's a countless number of things that we can choose to do as well. And so it becomes really hard to decide what to work on any given day in any given moment. And thought that there had to be a tool that would help us kind of see all these different moving parts in one place so that we could better prioritize what's important to us, because we kind of have that like full picture view of our lives. And so that's what we set out to do with Goalden Hour.
Nice. You use this word a few times that I like a lot, inundated, both inundated in like the tools that we have access to, but also you introduced an interesting concept that I hadn't thought about. If you're someone like myself that you love personal development, you get inspired, and you also feel inundated there, right? With all these different like great articles that you're reading, videos that you're seeing, maybe people that you're following. And I hadn't really thought of it until you said it right now, being like inundated, maybe an inspiration, maybe I could call it that. I'm not sure that you use that phrase, but that sense of overwhelm and the ad hoc kind of piecemeal approach to creating everything together. So could you tell me maybe a little bit more? Would you mind going into it? Like, what is your perspective? How do you create, a well-rounded, a well-balanced life in this way?
Yeah, well, I think it really comes down to figuring out what is important to you, right? What are the areas of life that are meaningful to you, whether that is your family, your career, school, health, fitness, and then what are the things that you want to achieve in each of those areas of life? And I think that's when it kind of gets into like goal setting, right? What are the different types of goals or objectives that you want to achieve in each of these areas of life? And then how do you break those down into actionable steps that you can make progress towards on a consistent basis? And so when you have that like cascading effect of, here's what's important to me, here are my values, in each of those areas of life, these are the things that I want to achieve. And then here's the actionable steps that I can take to achieve those things. Then it becomes a lot more concrete. And then your daily experience of trying to fulfill your goals and live a well-balanced life is all about kind of picking and choosing which of those activities across all of these domains of life you're going to spend time and energy on. And those things can ebb and flow. You don't necessarily have to work towards all of your goals every day, but knowing what all your goals are and trying to find the balance between these different areas of life that works for you, I think is what helps you become successful and well-rounded.
Yeah, I think we see it over and over again, when we look at the great books that we like to read and the people we find inspiring. I also think that, talking about goals, we were talking about it recently, is that, before I used to be kind of very task oriented, maybe that's kind of the software developer in me that started off like very kind of like tactical. And so when you think of a goal, you've talked about life goals and like setting goals in life that you want to achieve. What do you kind of think of when you're describing a goal, when you're thinking of your own goals? Like, what does goal mean to you?
Yeah, I honestly think that anything can be seen through the lens of a goal. Um, you may not think about doing laundry as a super fulfilling activity, but it helps you keep your space clean or helps you stay organized. And that's a goal that allows you to be a better version of yourself. Paying your bills fulfills a goal of managing your money. Going to the post office to buy stamps is in service of a goal to keep up with your errands. Watching a movie fulfills a goal of having fun or fostering relationships if you watch with your family. So when you kind of shift that perspective, you can start to think about everything you do as having a purpose. And then when you actually have that holistic, 360 view of your goals across all different domains of your life, you realize there might be a lot of things that you're trying to balance. And then it becomes about finding ways to make time and space for everything that is important to you in any given day or week or month.
Yeah, and I think that for for me, there's two things that you drew to mind that I'd love to get into, and we can pick which order we want, whatever you feel like. For entrepreneurs, I know I am an entrepreneur, and I coach entrepreneurs, and this inundation of feeling like you have so much to do, and you also need to sacrifice, right? Like I think in one way we talk about not having a lifestyle business as though that is bad, as though the word lifestyle and startups are like antithetical to like one
Right.
another. So I think that there's one concept there, and the same thing with the tasks and goals that you were getting into. And I love this phrase that you use: a lens to look through, right? To see things through. And recently, I was like telling you that when I made that shift in mindset for myself, of seeing not the work I was doing as getting something done, but who I wanted to be and the opportunity of who I become. That is like what the goal is for me. So,
Yeah.
how do you see like? You talked a bit more about the goals of like doing laundry, the goals of being I don't know how you'd say it's someone who's completing their errands, that's moving forward on progress. How do you see the purpose of a goal? Like, is there a way that you describe like the purpose of a goal?
Hmm. Well, I think the purpose of a goal is really just to achieve some kind of objective that you're working towards. And from the lens of like an entrepreneur, I think it was really easy to fall into this trap of thinking that, if you just work harder, you're going to be more successful, and achieve the kind of outcomes that you want for your
Mm,
business. But I think we often underestimate how much our mindset and our physical wellness impacts our ability to not only operate effectively and efficiently, but also to attract the things we want into our lives. And if you're burning the candle on both ends and, working yourself to the bone, you're likely also feeling burnt out. Maybe as an entrepreneur, you feel like you're spinning your wheels, not getting anywhere. And you forget to just kind of have like faith in yourself and what you're working on. And that kind of mindset, like that faith, comes from feeling good about yourself. You're just naturally happier and more fulfilled when you're getting enough exercise, eating well, spending time with your loved ones. So I think as much as possible, when we think about being productive, it's also about being purposeful with our time and making sure that we balance our lives in all different domains so that we can show up in each one as a more effective version of ourselves.
nice. I love that. It brought to mind a couple of things when you said it there is like a real intentionality of who you want to be. And this also like drawing and attracting to you the things in life that you want. I mean, one of the questions I often think of myself is, have I ever made like a really good decision when I've been in like a negative headspace? Like it's very hard to be creative for me personally in that space. So the intentionality. So how do you go about, how would you help someone plan with intentionality? How would you talk about intentionality and goal setting and planning?
Yeah. So, in terms of goal setting, there's actually a perspective that we like to share about defining your goals as either milestone goals or lifestyle goals. And this kind of came from, me thinking about traditional goal setting frameworks. And I think the most popular one out there is SMART goals, which are a framework to define your goals as specific, measurable, actionable, results oriented, and time bound. And I always just felt like that was a lot of work to
Right.
have to, figure out all these parameters for every single goal that you set. And so thinking about a simpler way of looking at the different goals that we have. And there are types of goals that, there's a specific outcome that we are trying to achieve. Maybe we want to lose X number of pounds, or we want to run a marathon, we want to take a trip somewhere. And those are like the milestone goals. The lifestyle goals, on the other hand, are things that are a shift in the way that we live. And this could be managing stress, eating healthier, fostering relationships. There isn't a specific outcome that we're trying to achieve, but we do want to keep up with these goals probably for the rest of our lives. And so that kind of made it easier to think about, what are the things that I'm trying to achieve, or the goals that I'm working towards, wanting to make progress on? And then what are the actionable steps that I can take towards those goals? And the way I see it, there are two types of actionable steps. There's either the tasks that we do, or there's routines or repetitive behaviors, right? And so tasks are things that, we do once or over time, but they have a definitive completion state. We can kind of cross them off our list. The routines, on the other hand, are things that we do on a regular basis, with some sort of frequency. We may do them forever. We may not do them forever, right? If I'm running a marathon, maybe I'm running 3 times a week and maybe increasing the number of times I run until I run the marathon. And then I decide I want to take a break from that kind of repetitive behavior. But the point is, for some period of time, it does have a set frequency and target value that we are trying to achieve. And then after you've defined the goals and broken them down into actionable steps, it really just comes down to, what am I doing on any given day? What are the actionable steps that I am choosing to make time for? And does my day reflect balance? Again, it doesn't mean that you have to work on all of your goals every day, but in some shape or form, you should be making time for things that energize you both physically, mentally, emotionally, maybe spiritually. And then you're still getting your work done, or whatever your primary objectives are for the day. So that's kind of how I think about planning with intentionality is, one, being able to see the whole picture. What are all of the goals I'm working towards, and what are the different steps that I'm taking towards those goals? And then pulling things in to today and kind of creating a day that allows me to balance what is most important to me.
Yeah, it's a very thoughtful way to approach like planning, like to bring together, like to synthesize this like lifestyle and milestone, like who do you want to be in life, and that they're not really one or the other, right? Like you should be able to see that whole view of your journey like in one place, right? Like you want to like see the lifestyle of goal that you're achieving and how that's reflected, as well as like the practical steps that you're doing at any time. And I love the breakdown of like routines and tasks, because I'm a big runner, so I follow into this. Hey, I'm training for a marathon. And so I end up having tasks, running so many miles a week, as you might call them. But the routine of being a runner during marathon training is much different than the routine of being a runner who that's part of my lifestyle. Like today's gorgeous out in Boston. And so I'm out running, 5 miles because of the sun. But does it get overwhelming, like planning to this extent, or what are your thoughts there of like the importance of planning? Like there's a thoughtfulness behind it, like you want to have it, but does it become overwhelming if you plan too much? What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that if you plan your day and it doesn't go exactly as planned, that means that you failed, right? I think just having a plan helps give you guidance and direction as to how to go about your day. And that can really help you approach the day with, just like a perspective on what you're doing. And it helps you also realize like what you're being distracted from, right? If you don't have a plan, then you don't really know what you're being distracted from. But if there is a plan, you know what your objectives are for the day, and you can kind of refer to that plan as you're asking yourself, what is the next thing I'm going to do today? And if that plan doesn't exist, then you're constantly having to evaluate all of your choices, right? So you do one thing, and then you're asking yourself, okay, what is the next thing I have to do? And you're looking across all of these things that you have to do and having to make that decision over and over again. And having to make that decision over and over again, I think, wears you out, right? You get into a mindset of like overwhelm, because every time you have to decide what to work on, you're just looking at all of these different things that you have to do. And that kind of burns people out. So I think just spending some time, once at the beginning of the day, or maybe once every couple hours, if you don't like to plan your whole day ahead of time, and just saying, okay, these are the next 3 things that I'm going to work on. And then you just have that mission in mind, and that helps you stay on track. But when there isn't that plan, we have a meeting, and then we check email, and then we have another meeting, and we check Instagram, and the next thing we know, our day is gone, and we haven't really gotten to some of the most important things that we wanted to do. Maybe we haven't made time for the goals or the activities that help enhance our health and wellness. And, that in and of itself makes us feel bad. So I don't think that, if you make a plan, you have to necessarily stick to it to a T.
Right.
It just kind of gives you a framework for how to approach your day. I also think that you don't necessarily have to plan everything to the hour. A lot of people think that planning means putting everything in your calendar, but not necessarily everything makes sense to go in a calendar. If I have a goal or a routine of eating vegetables 3 times a day, I'm not going to really plan for that in my calendar. I'm not going to schedule that in, but I may want to cross it off my list and track towards it. So I personally like the idea of just kind of creating an order of operations, a list of things that I want to do, and a rough order in which I'm going to do them. But being flexible with that, right? I might move some things around. I might change what I choose to do based on my mood. But I do have some sort of, plan that I'm referencing, and that gives me a guidepost for how I'm going to approach my day.
Yeah, and I like that that piece that you were getting into. Where were you going? That for me, what ends up happening is, let me step back for a second. It's the cognitive load. Like, you're going to pay it at some point, right? So if you're in the moment, always deciding whether to do something or whether to not do something, why not plan ahead of time? Like, why not sit in the morning and kind of script out that framework that helps you with that decision-making process later on? And why not have the flexibility to add into it that creative piece, that inspirational piece that really helps fuel you in your journey, right? I mean, we're a multi-hyphenated people, right? We have many different interests in many areas, and we have also many different types of goals. So from seeing your product a little bit, there's this part about inspiration. Could you just maybe go into a little bit about how do you see the place of both inspiration? How do you end up tying it back to, the goals at hand? I love this concept of, for me, I know I get inspired, right? So I get inspired to do something, and then, I kind of forget what the impetus for that inspiration was. So it might be nice to kind of tie the two together to the actual goal before I forget it. How do you think of inspiration? Where is its place in Goalden Hour?
Yeah. So the inspiration page is really, I think, in Goalden Hour, it's meant to give people the perspective that this isn't just a productivity tool for managing your tasks. It's really about helping you become a better version of yourself. And the inspiration lends itself to showing people all different types of goals across different areas of life, and also suggesting that there are many different ways to achieve those goals. And I think that's one thing that other habit tracking apps don't really capture well is, they kind of have this perspective of, don't break the chain. So if you're going to start this habit, you're just going to do that habit as many times as possible, consistently, forever. And if you miss a day, or if that habit stops being interesting to you, then for all intents and purposes, you've kind of failed at using the app correctly. Our perspective is that your life will ebb and flow. Sometimes there are different ways that you can achieve goals, and you might actually decide that you don't want to do something anymore, right? So, perhaps one of your goals is to stay fit or get enough exercise. In the wintertime, maybe that means going skiing once a month. But in the summertime, maybe that means going biking 3 times a week. And so that's just kind of the nature of how people live. And I think the inspiration page is to help people realize that there are so many different types of goals and so many different ways that you can achieve those goals. And if something isn't sticking for some reason, explore why it isn't sticking. It might be because you're not motivated to do it, in which case there might be another type of goal or another type of activity that helps you fulfill that same goal. Or there might be other levers that you can pull, right? Maybe this activity feels too daunting to you, and there's a way to make it simpler or easier to do. Maybe you're forgetting to do it, and there's ways that you can design your environment to remember to trigger something to allow you to remember to do something. So yeah, the inspiration is really just to make people feel like there is a lot of possibilities in how they can choose to spend their time and what types of goals that they can achieve. And, just be on that constant path of evolution and self-improvement. You're always getting better little by little in many areas of life. And I think the goal of life is to, uh, you know, figure out what your values are and then keep discovering who you are, and then spend the rest of your life strengthening what's important to you, and uh, just shape yourself into the best possible version of who you are.
Yeah, and I love that there's a tool that you're creating that helps you to do that, right? To discover the values and plan
Yeah.
to achieve that. And I love this. You didn't use the exact phrase. I'll word it a little differently, but it's like a stickiness of inspiration, right? Like you want that inspiration that you have to reside around a bit, and so to have a routine that backs it, and to be forgiving both to yourself and the goal at hand, right? I mean, I know myself sometimes I feel like beholden to the goals that I have. Like once I've written them down, that if I haven't actually executed on them, that there's some indication of like the type of person I am, right? Which doesn't seem at all with both the intent or the purpose of like what you've been building, nor your view on life. Would you mind going into like a little bit more of like this concept of attracting things to you in life? You had hit on it much earlier. If it's an area you want to explore a little bit of
Yeah,
mindset and
sure.
attraction and inspiration.
Yeah, I think there is so much power in just belief, because not only does that belief allow you to act in accordance with what you believe in, right? Like if you believe your business is going to be successful, then you're going to be more inclined to want to work on it. If you don't believe that, then you're just going to think that everything that you do is uh, moot, and you're not going to be motivated to want to work on things that are important to you. So yeah, the power of belief, I really think, just imagining who you want to be, what you want to achieve, the environment that you might find yourself in once you've achieved that dream life, the people, the places, as much as you can visualize what that would look like. And then I think even more important than visualizing it is actually like feeling the emotion that would come with it, right? The joy, the gratitude, the awe, whatever that is. When those emotions, those elevated emotions, are really paired with this clear intention of what you want, it can amplify your gains. Of course, it doesn't mean that you don't do the work, right? That's probably the most important part, is actually doing the work. And I think very often doing the work can help get you into the right mindset, right? It is often easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of acting. But both of those things combined, right? The power of positive thinking plus the action towards the outcome that you want produces incredible results. And the mindset around that can really catalyze your efforts. So you could be working really, really hard towards your goal, but if you're not really believing and having faith and manifesting that with your mind, you have to work that much harder. And so when those two things come together, I think there's just a really potent combination of this belief plus this um, motivation to keep taking action towards your goals, that allows those things to come to fruition much faster.
Yeah, I think as people historically, we believed in the power of belief and manifestation and lots of attraction. I think that where we are now, what I've noticed personally over the last, I would say during this COVID period, is I think there is a shift in mindset, especially in the entrepreneur community. I think we're finally maybe open more. I think it's been on the fringes that we've been talking about, how do you attract and how do you embrace mindset as part of goal setting and the projects you're working on? I think sometimes we don't talk about it enough. So I love that you both have that view in life, but also you're building it is part of the bedrock of the product and the company that you're building. And so I know for us, we're chatting for a while and we're going to get to see your product. We're going to have you walk us through for a few minutes, like what it looks like. Would you be ready and open to doing that?
Yeah, I have it teed up here.
Perfect. So maybe what we could do is, I see we have some people on the call. So if you have questions after Karthy, we're going to do two things. After Karthy kind of walks us through, she can explore more of these concepts, if you wouldn't mind, Karthy, like that we've been talking about here and how they relate to the product that you're building. Put your questions into the chat, put your LinkedIn profiles there so that we can connect with one another. Put your websites in that you're working on, of the products that you're building. And then after that, we'll connect around those and we'll ask some questions and we'll do a little networking piece here too. So it's not just great conversation. I'm going to say that. I'm going to put it out there. Karthy, when you're ready, why don't you walk us through Goalden Hour? And thank you for a wonderful chat.
Oh, of course. Thank you for moderating. I appreciate that. All right. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
So this is Goalden Hour. It is a web-based product right now, although we are building a mobile-first beta. When you first log into the app, you see a list of the things that you have to get done. And so the basic building blocks of Goalden Hour are goals that are broken down into actionable steps that are either tasks or routines, like we talked about. So with the tasks, they're kind of broken down into 3 sections. There are things that you have to get done this week, things that you have to get done soon, which is like within the next 30 days. And then there are things that you have to get done someday. And these are usually 30 days and beyond. And how this is set up is, everything has a deadline associated with it. And these tasks filter through these lists based on that deadline. So, next week, the things that are due this week will automatically move into that list. So you can actually capture things far in the future, put a date on when you want to accomplish it by, and they'll automatically move through these lists so that you can kind of focus on the most important and essential things on any given week, but have things that are coming through the pipeline as they become relevant. And then with routines, right now we just have weekly routines. So when you create a routine, you're going to decide how many times a week you want to do it and what goal it is related to. And then as you are making progress on that routine over the course of the week, you'll just use these plus and minus buttons to indicate the status of that. You can also see how you're doing over time. So this graph gives you a view of your target value versus what you've actually accomplished. And you'll be able to see kind of how you're stacking up over the last few weeks. So while these are the tactical things that you're doing towards your goals, the objectives themselves that you're trying to achieve can be viewed here on the goals page. So these are the different goals across different areas of life. And you can do a deep dive into any one of these. So if you're trying to launch a business, for example, you may have a series of tasks that you are working on towards that business. And you may also have some routines that you've created, things like reaching out to new leads or watching a video on growth hacking. Those are examples of repetitive behaviors that you can take towards your goal. And I think that's probably one of the unique features of Goalden Hour is kind of combining the habit tracking with task management. And, both of those allow you to work towards your goals consistently. There's likely going to be a series of things that you do that are more task oriented. And there's a lot of things that you often have to do that you want to build habits or rituals around in order to ensure that you are constantly making time for your goals. With raising money, for example, reaching out to investors or spending time on fundraising on a daily basis is definitely a kind of routine that you want to set up in order to ensure that you make steady progress towards that goal. And then once you've set up all of these goals, you can kind of see them from this view here. You can also see goals that you've completed in the past here. And then, once one of these goals is completed, let's say you've launched your business, you can actually complete that goal. You also have the option to delete it, edit it. So yeah. And then the inspiration page is what we talked about earlier. this is kind of that goal shopping experience where you can browse different ideas and activities and choose what you want to bring into your life. So if there's something here that seems like a goal that you want to add, you can create that goal and then explore it and find different activities that will help you achieve that goal. So if eating vegetables is something I want to do, I could tie it to that goal to eat healthy. And I'll say I want to do it, 4 times a week, create that routine. And then it automatically filters through to that dashboard so that it's part of my daily life. It's just accessible and available. And so this kind of addresses the thing that we talked about earlier, where, we read all these books and articles about doing things, but it's really hard to make that jump from paper to practice. This is a way for us to kind of find something that inspires us and then take an actionable step towards making it part of our lives. And then we can kind of track and manage them in relation to all the other things we want to do. And then the last thing I will show you is the check-in, which is a workflow where once a week you are invited to review your week. So look at your different goals, indicate any progress that you've made towards those goals. So this is an opportunity to status things from last week, because on Monday, the dashboard is going to clear out. So all of the tasks from next week are going to move into the week for this week. All of your routines are going to get reset to 0. And if you wanted to make any updates to what you did last week, it would be through this workflow that you would do that. And then the second step here is a review of all of the goals that you didn't work on. So this is just a surface of things that you haven't created any routines for, you didn't have any tasks scheduled for these goals. And it's not to make you feel bad for not working on these goals, but just to ensure that these things are still important to you. Because if they're not, you could delete them. You could complete the goal if it's something that you feel like you already accomplished. Or you could go to the inspiration page and actually find activities that are going to help you fulfill that goal. And then the last step in this process is just a few questions to get people to be a little introspective and reflective, asking you what you learned, what you enjoyed most, and what you would do differently next time, with the goal of, taking this intentional time to figure out, can I bring some of my learnings forward? Can I spend more time doing things that I enjoy? And is there a way that I can grow and improve and be conscious of that kind of improvement as I reorient for the next day or the next week? And that's really all there is to Goalden Hour today. Like I said, we are building a beta version of the product that is really focused on daily planning and reflection. So you can almost imagine an app version of this, where each day you're prompted to pick the tasks and the routines that you want to work on today, and then build an order of operations. So, you might say that you're going to start your day by writing that cover letter, and then you're going to eat some raw vegetables, and then you're going to deep clean your apartment, and then meditate. And then you kind of have that like template for what you want to achieve, and everything is flexible and movable. So you can play Tetris with these different pieces on your schedule. But it kind of gives you that guidance as to what you're going to do and how you're going to approach your day.
And I like the part that you mentioned where it helps you bring like pen and paper into like an app, because the routines that you have on the right are like very similar to like my routines. Like I have that written on as Post-it someplace that gets lost, and then it ends up in a pile somewhere. So I love that it has some permanency, right? And in some way to track it. And I love this idea that you introduced, is like, how do you learn? Because I know when, for instance, when I'm running, right, if that was part of my routines or the tasks that I have, depending on where I'm in the cycle, depending on the last week, my subsequent week, even though I have like a very firm training plan, changes, right? It changes based on the feedback that I had before. And you had mentioned entrepreneurship, and it's the same thing. I mean, if you're going through, I could imagine this, take like the great book, Disciplined Entrepreneurship, right? It has all these steps on how to build build a business, right? 24 steps, and you can have a, you know, a well-oiled machine at the end of it. And I could see something like that residing so nice here, where you integrate back into it the feedback that you're learning week from week, and at the same time tying together the concept of, for me, this is one of the parts that I love about your product, the inspiration. That's why I think so many other tools gets lost, is what is the impetus, like what inspires you, like what fuels you. And too many things are just, you know, check boxes and not seen through that lens of a goal, or who do you want to be in a well-balanced life.
Right. Yeah, precisely. I think one, setting things up through the lens of a goal, again, helps paint purpose in everything that you do. And then, you know, long-term vision for something like this, and I think the benefit of tracking these things in a digital tool all in one place is that there's just so much rich data that can be used to help people grow and improve and really become better versions of themselves. Because when all of that is captured on paper, you kind of lose whatever insights may come from, you know, realizing that, you know, maybe you like to run best in the mornings, or that, you know, whenever you try to schedule yoga for, you know, the afternoons, it doesn't happen. And so there's, I think, all sorts of insights that can come from, you know, what we're able to do with technology and AI. And that's kind of the future of what we see with Golden Hour is being able to really, you know, gauge how to best support a person, because we know what their schedule looks like. We know what's on their plate, what goals are top of mind, and how they operate in some sense. And that gives us enough information and input to be able to really guide this person along their self-improvement journey in a way that is personalized to them.
Yeah, and you hit on it exactly right, which is that, you know, that ability to use data to help you improve. I think I was describing to you, like, I used to schedule my runs, which I thought were so important to me, around all of my other meetings. So one day it would be in the morning, the other day it would be like in the evening. And it wasn't until I was very intentional and sat down with pen and paper to see, like, wait a second, what works for me best here? And I had to shift it to the best time and then schedule everything around it. That worked well for me. So it might be a tip that others could benefit from. But where I'm going with it is, if there was actually a way to visualize it more than just, you know, a reminder or a task someplace, is there some place to mark that it was a good run in the context of my other schedule? This would have been beneficial. It wouldn't take me, you know, 3 marathons to figure that out. And I probably would have had a better PR earlier on. Now, I know that Joseph, I think you had a couple questions as you were going through. I saw them come in, and you know, Jay said if we want to open it up a bit, we can open up to more Q&A, or I can just read them off. Or Joseph, if you're comfortable and feel like asking yourself, please. Let's get this kind of an engage. And I see another person, Tyrone, here as well.
So, Mark, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so very much, Miss Karthy. Amazing. Fantastic. You were just a shining light. I really enjoyed your presentation. I have a few questions on your program, if you don't mind answering them for me, please. Just to clarify, under your routines,
Yeah.
your routine section you said is weekly. Now, what's routine to you, or is it to the customer, I should say? Is it 5 days a week, or 7 days a week, or once a week, a couple times a week? Is it just how they do it every week, or would you like to see it routines done, you know, systematically throughout the week? I'm not quite sure how you set up the routine.
Yeah, so with this current version of the product, we did it on a weekly basis. So there are only weekly routines, but definitely in the future, we want to accommodate daily and monthly as well. Right now, if you wanted to capture a daily routine in Golden Hour, you would just do it within the context of a weekly routine, right? So if I want to do something 2 times a day, it would be like 14 times a week, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it was what we built for this basic MVP version. But yeah, I kind of think of routines as like 3 different time frames. There's usually things that you want to do on a daily basis, things you want to do perhaps a couple times a week, and then maybe things you want to do a couple times a month, right? So like paying your bills might be something you do once a month. You know, watching a movie might be something you do once or twice a month. But really anything that you want to do with any level of frequency and within a certain time frame is what I consider a routine.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. My next question is under activities. You mentioned activities, and that was pretty snappy what you did, because you just went into it and all these activities came up, which is amazing. Did you have to populate those activities, or a customer has to populate those activities themselves, or does your program already have these activities in there with a supplement on the side that said if you can't find activities you want, you can go import your own?
So the inspiration page comes loaded with all of those activities. That's like homegrown content that we've built. You can always add your own custom tasks, routines, goals. So, whether or not you choose to make use of the inspiration page, you'll be able to add new tasks, routines, whatever makes sense for your life and the projects that you're working on. But we just like to have that inspiration page, to help people understand that this is meant for more than just productivity. It's really meant to help you live a purposeful life, and there could be many ways that you do that. But B, to just give people options, show them what kinds of activities might be available to them for different goals. And we want to continue to expand that library and maybe even crowdsource some content from our users.
Fantastic. That's a most excellent answer. My last question, because I don't want to hog up the airway here. My last question, I totally agree with what Mark said. If he would have had some information that he can look back onto the past of, good behaviors or bad behaviors, it would help him solve some of the issues in the future. Now, does your program allow an individual, your customer, to look back? It's like, oh, in the last 6 months, this is how far we came, or last year, this is how far we came, or within the last month, by doing these routines, this is, how far we came. And so it either pump them up, or like, well, we tried to do this routine and it doesn't work, and I've been trying it for this long. Maybe, as you said, I do believe you said this earlier today, maybe it's time for you to refocus or readjust your goals to better suit who you are.
Yeah. So in the current version of the product, we haven't built that functionality, but something that we have mocked up, have been thinking about, is specifically around like habit formation. If we detect that a certain habit isn't sticking, we might ask you a couple of questions about why you think it isn't sticking. Is it because you're not motivated to do it? Is it because you're forgetting to do it? Is it because it seems too daunting to do? And then based on that input, there's actually a whole slew of tactics that you can use to hack your habits. So, for example, if you're forgetting to do a habit, right? Let's say you're trying to build a meditation habit and it's just not sticking because you forget to do it. You might stack that habit on top of something that you already do consistently. So maybe you drink coffee every morning and you never fail to wake up and brew that cup of coffee. If you stack your meditation habit right on top of brewing coffee, then that becomes the trigger in your mind, right? So whenever you put the coffee pot on, you go and meditate for a minute, and that way you start to remember that new habit that you're trying to build. It kind of becomes ingrained in part of your daily lifestyle, and then you can build off of that, and maybe start meditating more often because it is a practice that you've now inculcated in your life. Is that what you were getting at, Joseph? Did I answer that question?
Yes, and I put myself on mute because I want other people to talk, because Jason's like, hey, I want to get into this ball game, so I'm gonna let Jason speak. But Miss Karthy, thank you very much.
No, great questions here.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, if you have any others, no, I'd love to have you jump in too. Yeah, I guess the one, and Tyrone, if you have any questions as well. Yeah, the one I had was, so how do you think about, there's different methodologies around like actually setting the goals. So, for example, do you want to put, I really want to eat healthy this week, or do you want to say, I want to eat 3 servings of vegetables this week? And like, how do you think about, how to phrase the goal that you put into the system there?
Yeah. So in my mind, the goal would be eating healthier, or, maybe it's more of like a milestone goal. And maybe you want to lose X number of pounds, or like, get your cholesterol down to some level. And so like that is the objective you're trying to achieve, but then the routine is the actual action that you're taking, right? So it is going to the gym this number of times a week, or eating this many vegetables, or drinking this much water. So I think of those things as like the goal versus the activity that fulfills the goal. And I think, very often when people set goals, they are thinking about like the outcome that they want to achieve, but they don't really define how they're going to get to that goal, right? So they might say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds by December 31st, which is fine. I think it's okay to set a goal like that, but you don't have total control over that goal. The only thing that you really have control of is how you show up to achieve that goal. So if your goal is to lose this number of pounds by the end of the year, you could get there, but the only thing that you can actually control is how many times are you going to the gym? How many times are you eating in accordance to a diet that allows you to achieve that goal? And so I think that is the crucial piece, is taking that goal and then making sure that there is a actionable step that you can take to achieve that goal. And Jason, I saw
it
that
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I saw that you asked another question about the quote in the background. That quote says,
oh yeah, behind you.
Yeah, it says, trust the wait, embrace the uncertainty. When nothing is certain, anything is possible. It's one of my favorites.
That's great. Yeah. Inspirational there. Yeah, and the other thing I really liked, like going through your platform, was how, when you break it down, it's not like this is urgent, this isn't urgent. It's this is a short-term goal, or this is something that's important this week. This is something that's important, over the next few weeks. I forget how you classified it, but like more of a time period rather than the, how important or not important it is.
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes the importance or the priority of something, I don't know, it can be a little arbitrary. And then if you have like 3 things that are high priority, you don't really know which of those things is the highest priority. I really just think about priority in terms of like what has to get done the soonest. And then, what is going to deliver the most value in my life. And so if you're looking at what's got to get done this week or today, and then which of those things is the most important thing that I can get done today, that's a much easier way to evaluate how to do things or in what order to do them.
And you very nicely, what I like most about the product, really sincerely, is I think sometimes when you're planning tasks and goals, you lose sight of the lifestyle. You lose sight of like who you want to become. And I think that's what I've appreciated most in the thoughtfulness, is like how you tie that back in. Like the lifestyle is, I'm a meditator, right? I'm someone who has a meditation lifestyle. So that then gets broken into routines and tasks that help you to support that.
Right.
But too often we talk about like losing 10 pounds or something by a certain date, and we forget that that's we actually we have a vision of who we become at that time. It's someone who walks into the new year, feels confident, feels powerful, right? Is ready to take on that next step. And I think that with most tracking tools, we lose sight of that. We lose that kind of vision. And I love that it gets integrated so seamlessly with what you've built. I think that's what I've enjoyed most in learning more about it. And your thought process too, Karthy, that it is part of the bedrock of what builds the company, right? And the culture and the mission.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I see we have a few more minutes. Tyrone, if you have a question, please feel free to introduce yourself or say hello, ask. And if not, that's all right as well. It's a small group we have here this evening, and we're nearing the end of it. And then I'd encourage everyone to maybe put their, Tyrone, Joseph, if you like. I know we have the Prepare for VC community, but it's also nice to connect as well on LinkedIn there too. I know that's another way, that we stay engaged with one another. So feel free to put that in the chat. We can connect there offline.
Yeah, and I'll also just drop the link for Goalden Hour in case anyone wants to check it out.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds good.
Well,
Yeah, I'm excited to, to check it out more. And yeah, it's an exciting platform. Definitely, definitely a lot of tasks, anyone in the startup space, especially, that we're all managing, like personal and business wise. So I think, yeah, this is a powerful tool there.
Appreciate you saying that.
well, thank you, Karthy. And Jason for putting this on, Steve for coordinating, getting us all together.
No problem.
But I think, when you're deciding the lifestyle you want to live and having a thoughtful conversation with friends and new acquaintances is something that's a powerful way to live your life. So I think it speaks well for all of us here. So thank you for putting this on, Jason.
Appreciate you
No,
all.
thank you guys.
Take care.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for presenting. Appreciate everybody came out. Yeah, we'll post the recording in the chat as well, in our community page as well. And yeah, for anybody, that wants to go back, take another listen. And no, great advice throughout the talk tonight.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you. Take
Cool.
care.